Okay, welcome everyone to class of local public finance. So what we're gonna do this week is economic development. The outline for the class is first part. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna explain some conceptual foundations, theoretical foundations about the economic development. So I'm going to introduce the simple macroeconomic models, which is called Keynesian model. And then I'm going to explain export-based model. So that is derived from Keynesian model, but it is often applied to the urban space. Okay. Then I will explain more based on export-based model, which is a simple input-output analysis. Then I'm going to summarize the theoretical characteristics of the what we cover in the class. Then the next one is I'm going to apply to those kind of theories to real case, and then like a effect of the tax and public service on economic development. Okay. Then I'm going to try to wrap up based on the previous studies what those studies really tell us about the best strategies about the economic development in for local government. Okay. Okay, so economic development is an important topic in local public finance because I think you have seen that for many local government elected officials, getting jobs, that phrase has become primary focus of the political campaign and their job performance. So that a lot of people highlight the concept and the strategies of the economic development. But there are a lot of their controversies about how much the policy is effective in influencing the business investment decisions, because we have seen a lot of the growing increase of the investment incentive because of the a lot of the competitions among the local government. Okay, and then the questions raise: do those kind of the business incentive like a tax break or subsidies influence the economic activity? Okay, and if so, which types of the activities like investment, employment, wage, income are affected to the greatest degree? Okay, do incentive discriminate among the business or treating new business differently than existing one, and some industry differently than others? Okay, so there are a lot of the questions, not only just what policy really affect the number of jobs or incomes in that local government. Okay, and then because of the importance of their policy in local elected officials, it has been receiving a lot of the attentions from a lot of the researchers. Okay. So starting point is we're gonna looking at the Keynesian models, which is explaining about their economic development. Well, that is coming from the perspective of the national economies. Okay. Okay, then let's talk about the Keynesian model. So I think a lot of the students have learned about the Beijing macroeconomic model just as a starting point. Okay, the simple Keynesian models, we can define the terms like income, expenditures, consumptions, and investment, saving, and export and import. Okay. Okay, so by the definitions, expenditures here, expenditure, total expenditure, or gross national product. Okay. E gross national product. Okay, is by the definitions, we assume that the all products are used either by the consumers or by the firms or by the government. Okay, well, but for very simplistic model of the Keynesian models, we didn't add about the government expenditures, so that when we just looking at the C is consumptions by the consumers. Okay, and then I is the investment by the firms. Okay, and X and M, this is export and import. So this is simply whether products are consumed by the within national economy or outside the national economies. Okay, so that the first equations talks about the how the gross national product is consumes, or gross national product is used. Okay, then second equation is by the definitions, incomes is the combinations of the consumptions and savings. Okay, and then by the definitions, by the gross national product is equal to national incomes, supply and demand. Okay, and another simple assumptions about the behaviors. Okay, well, this is simply, well, the people change their behavior, and then based on their preference, they're not gonna consume as much as their incomes, and then there are some kind of their behavioral fact. Okay, so the behavioral fact is small characters C or I0 or X0 or M. Okay, and then all using all these informations, so we can find one simple equations about the equilibriums, which is national incomes, is some behavioral factors multiply, consumptions, investment, and export. Okay, well, the process is complicated, but that takeaway lessons for this class is we can highlight three, interpretations. First one is export. Okay, here exports multiply into incomes. Okay, well, it means that, well, export does not really affect, well, just simple one-to-one match to their national incomes, and it will be multiplied with some behavioral factors in as the coefficient here. Okay, so that will be captured in their national incomes. Okay, and then if we look at in the first part here is the behavioral part of their consumers, so peoples, and if you look at that, if the C is getting bigger, okay, and then the bottom is getting is going to the decrease, so that the bottom is going to decrease, and then will impact of these consumption, investment, export will be increased as well. Okay, so if you see that here, C is going large, then total will goes off because of minus here, right? And in the same logics, we can see that, okay, we can see that M is getting bigger, and then because the bottom is getting bigger, and then this part is getting smaller, so that its impact is getting, smaller. Okay. So what it means then, or you may ask about what it means by C and M. Okay. C is marginal propensity to consume. Okay. And this is simply defined as proportions. So in the basic the macroeconomics they call marginal propensities to consume is, let me see, okay, the proportion of one pay that a consumer spends on their consumptions of goods and services as opposed to saving it. Okay, so it simply show that how much they want to consume more compared to the saving behaviors. Okay, so from this statement, what we can think about, people have more propensities, more likelihood to consume. Okay, then if we have the simple same amount of the increase in the consumption, same amount of the increase in the investment, same amount of increase in the export, and then its effect on the national economy or national income or the local income will be much bigger. Okay, so that shows that, well, a lot of the medias and a lot of the policy, the goal was trying to make the people spend more, consume more. Okay, so that is simply derived from these equations. Okay, and then another interpretation is these factors is getting much smaller if import is larger. Okay, so that basically we can simply apply to the MPC as the MPI as well. So the likelihood or the propensity to spend or increase their import. Okay, so that if all economies or the local or national, they have the more propensities to try to the import, and then even though they're gonna have the same amount of the consumption, investment, and export, and then their effect on their income, economic development is much smaller. Okay. Okay, so these basic models will does not include a lot of things like government expenditures, which is commonly show up in the debt, national demands and supply equations. It doesn't have the information of the price and interest rate and expectations, but it shows very fundamental key concepts in economic development. Okay, first one is export. Okay, export is one of the main component in the equations. Okay, and the second one is multipliers. Okay, multiplier is simply the factor that augment or increase other related variable when it's applied to. So basically, we can see that, well, consumption as itself does not increase their national incomes. Okay, there will be some kind of the multipliers. Okay, depending on how much they trying to consume and how much it's trying to their import. Okay, and then leakage is like a import. They have the more propensity to import, and then it will have the small impact on their economic development. Okay, so that it's kind of the basics. Well, economic based model is very simplest, possible macroeconomic models for local economies. Okay, well, even though they are highly oversimplified, and then it should be used with great care, but shows that some useful insight, and then this is gonna be starting point about the understanding the local economies and economic development. Okay. Then we can move on to another theoretical models, which is like expert-based models. Okay. Export-based models is simply starting with the distinctions between the what is export jobs and what is local jobs. Okay, and then the export jobs are related to with the goods and service sold on the national markets. Okay, like manufacturing jobs are one of the popular example because the cars, motor vehicle, vehicles, these kind of the goods will be selling on a national base. Okay, it does not just focus on just local specific one areas. Okay, local jobs are jobs related to the goods or service that compete only in the local market. Okay, so if you think about the grocery stores, well, the people do not cross the borders to for shoppings, right? Of course, there if there is a very close distance, and then people do that, but not they're gonna drive like 10-12 hours to buy some things. Okay, fast food restaurants, okay, dry cleaners is kind of the one of the popular examples. Okay, and well, there will be some kind of the mix between the expert and local jobs. Okay, well, one example is like a famous restaurant or retail store on the boundary, and then that that's even though they are small, and then they may attract the customers from other areas. Okay, and then they're gonna do some kind of the export jobs. Okay. Then export-based models combine the definition and simple behavioral equations. So the T is total jobs, and then L is local, and E is export jobs. Okay. Okay, then export-based model by the definitions, total jobs equal to local and export. Okay, and then local jobs will be affected by export jobs. Okay, because the local jobs are created by the resource coming from the outside of their economies, and then local job will be some related with their export. Okay, so B is kind of the individual behaviors response to their outside external jobs. Okay, or the local behaviors. Okay, then putting these equation together, and then we can have the export jobs multiply 1 plus B, okay, is equal to total jobs. So if you look at these equations, 1 plus B is called by the multipliers. So meaning that it will augment, it will add the impact of their external jobs to their total total jobs in their local economies. Okay, so simply it shows that the export jobs are multiplied up into total jobs, and then because they're gonna bring some outside of their the jobs, and then the income, and then those income is kind of the circulating around the local economies. Okay. And with the simple export-based model logics, and of course I didn't really go much in deeper about the explaining all the details about the models. I'm using some very simplified versions so that a lot of the students are able to understand about the process and the basic definitions and the rationales. So the lesson from the export-based model logic is export jobs will get the multiply up into the total jobs. Okay, so meaning that to bring one external jobs from outsider does not just impact just one one local incomes, right? It's not gonna be one-to-one match. It's gonna be multiplied up, okay? And of course, it depends on uh, how how the policy may have the influence on the people's behaviors, okay? And then the second one is attracting another local job based on the models, like giving them some subsidy does not do anything except to just displace local jobs on the other side of the town. So there will be just the change of their local jobs, local industries. Okay, so that focusing on their local jobs does not really help about the economic development of the local, you know, local areas. Okay, so basic, simple lesson is if you want to enhance the local economies, then you should focus on export jobs. How are you going to bring the jobs from outside to your locals? Okay. But of course, there are limitations about their export jobs. Well, simply this is highly simplified, and then they do not consider any market failures, and then also some government policy fails. Okay, like a lot of their economic development policy, uh, they end up just adding to local jobs. Okay, because of the failure, the market failures, or the you know policy failures. Okay, but the bottom line is, well, economic development policy should focus on export jobs. Is this a good starting place? Okay, think about their economic development policy, not only from their export-based models, but also economic-based model that I talk in terms of the Keynesian models. Okay. Then we're gonna talk about input-output analysis, which is kind of the type of the expert-based models. Okay. Okay, so input and output analysis is one of the easy way to think about the multiplier impact. Okay, so IO, input and output analysis, starting with there will be just $1 or certain amount of their demand for product of the industry A. Okay, and we can think about the like a certain amount of their export. Okay, and then what happened to that local economies. Okay, for instance, like there will be like a 100 million and worse export in computer or vehicle industries. Like they're gonna export like 100 million dollars of their vehicles export. Okay, then what happens? Well, because they're gonna export their 100 million-dollar vehicles, that will be affect certain amount of the like you can make assumption like 50 millions for incomes for income of their workers. Okay. Oh, and then you can think about the 50 millions of um, the component of the vehicle. Okay. Okay, so like among the 50 millions, there will be 10 millions of the tires, like 10 millions of their engines, or 10 million steel, things like that. Okay, so what the input and output analysis, and then there will be cases. Okay, and then because of the income increase like 50 millions, it will affect maybe the workers, kind of the resident in that areas, and then 50 millions of the incomes, among them like 40 millions goes to grocery or other goods or service. Okay, so that basically will starting with the one exogenous demand. Okay, then what happened to the local economies, and then they're gonna track all their possible scenarios of their that happen in their local economies. Okay, so usually they're gonna show that one exogenous demand for A, and then maybe, as I mentioned, that 10%, 1% is goes to incomes, like 5% goes to the vehicle, like 11% is goes to like the tire, engine, whatever it is. So they can categorize all the different details about what happened to the local economies, and the leakage is not really happening to the national that local economy is going to affecting their consumptions about their outside of their economies, like import, right? People maybe, because the increase of their income, they maybe travel outside, travel abroad, things like that. Okay. And then one of the important concepts here is indirect and induced. Okay, induced multiplier, so that we can see that when things happen to the local economies. Okay, and then we can track all the different decision making process about their the behavior change by the consumers and producers, resident, household, the firms. Okay, so we can calculate about the multiplier, right? And then, as I mentioned, that the main distinctions between the multiplier when they're gonna categorize, one is indirect. Indirect meaning that based on purchase of the input relating to the vehicle. Okay, as for from the example of the like 100 million of the vehicle export. Okay, induced is focusing on the what happened to the behavioral change by household. Okay, because of the 10 million income increase by the household, they're gonna spend grocery supplies and whatever it is. Okay, so this is kind of the simple approach about the input and output analysis, and then understanding about the multipliers in the local economies. Okay, and in the formal terms, they can calculate, and then they can have equation like this one, and y is output and x is exogenous demand, right? Like export on 100 millions. Okay, then we can see that each the coefficient here is amount of the product 1 needed to produce the output for product J. Okay, so this is going to be like indirect or induced, and then multiply impacts. Okay, calculation all the different small a and small b. Okay, so taking these equations and then using matrix notations. Okay, so we can gather some multiplier idea in the export-based model. Okay, so that we can see by the setting of the export and import analysis, and then we are able to see that how does the exogenous demand change in the local economies will affect differential impact of the different industry in the local economies. Okay, and there are two different types of their input and output models. One is open and one is closed, and then the open is they're gonna treating their household sector as the exogenous demand, as the X as well. And then one of its clause is they're gonna treating household as industries. Okay. One of the main contributions about the input and output analysis, okay, is kind of the focus on we may need to bring the data that think about the issues of the multipliers. Okay. So once we have to collect all those information together, then we can make assumptions that if things happen to industry A, then we can see that what will happen to the total local economies. Okay, but the problem is a lot of times those kind of the multiplier analysis and multipliers information is available on the national economies. It's not really available for local and provincial government, even for very developed countries as well. Okay, that is one of the issues. And then IO, they're gonna introduce the distinction between indirect, as mentioned, the purchase of the input, okay, and then induced multiplier purchased by their household, okay, and then the notion of the indirect multiplier is very critical. So we can see that the input are produced locally, okay, then we can see that much more stronger impact on their local economies. Okay, so to take the example of the auto industries, right? So they have the 100 million of the export of the vehicle to outside, or maybe another countries. Okay, and then if things happen, okay, well, just some portion of the that export is going to the income of the resident. Okay, some portion is going to like your input production process, right? So that if the engines and the tires and steel, all those kind of the small input manufacturing factories are located in the local, then they're gonna have the much larger impacts. If not, then actually they're gonna share that exogenous shocks, exogenous export with the local areas together. Okay, so like for instance, the tire local companies, and then the steel company is located in the local areas, then they're gonna have the much stronger impact on the local economies. Okay. Okay, so distinctions between indirect and induced multipliers. Okay, and especially the notion of the indirect multiplier is critical. Okay, so as you can see from the equations, the more input are produced in locally, then we can see that the leakage will be getting smaller and the multiplier is getting higher. So meaning that even with the same amount of the increase export, $1 increase in the export, then their effect is will be much larger than what they are used to be. Okay. But one of the limitations about using the multipliers, okay, so simply if they have the higher multiplier for certain industries, it means that they're gonna attracting the export for that industries, and then they're gonna have the much larger positive impact on the economies. Okay, and then but thing is, well, a lot of times multipliers easily can be misused because well, it is so difficult to figure out what would happen without the programs and with the programs, because we don't have any counterfactual scenarios. Okay, so that the central questions that you're gonna ask by yourself is simply how the world will be different with programs and without programs. Really having that program does make a difference if you think. Okay, if not, and then you should keep, skeptical about the number of the multipliers. Okay. Okay, then we simply talk about the basic model about the economic development from the Keynesians and export-based model, and then from the export-based model we look at the input and output analysis. Okay, next one is we're gonna looking at the economic development policies, and then two terms. Well, usually from the local public finance perspective, fiscal incentives by the local governments to offset the real business cost difference, because a lot of the economic development policy is trying to reduce the business cost difference, so that attracting the more investment from the private firms. Okay, well, usually there are three basic types. Okay, so one is capital financing, like the below level of the market interest rate. Okay, so the government is providing the financings, and then helping the private companies to borrow the money at the lower interest cost, lower the borrowing cost. That's one of the types. And another is tax reductions, or they're going to use the credit or deductions, abatement, or specialized rate, whatever it is. So bring some kind of the benefit of tax reductions to the private firms. The last part is direct. So direct grant of the goods or service. Okay, so that like the land, they're gonna give them the land at the discount price, or sometimes free, or with some conditions, and then maybe they're gonna give some labor training, or consulting, or management advice, things like that. So most of the local government economic development policies, all these incentives in one way or another. So they're gonna usually developing a package of the specific incentive from a general list of for each potential investment projects. Okay, so what we're gonna cover for this economic development policy is simply we're gonna focus on the we're going to categorize into two things. One is tax reduction, tax and economic development, and the public service and economic development. Okay. Okay, so when you think about the relationship between the tax and economic developments, and then there are two conceptual frameworks that we can think. One is tax and firm profitabilities, and the other one is capitalizations. Well, things we learn about the capitalizations when we learn the concepts of the demand of the local public service. Okay, like because the people demand more higher service, more better service, more public better service. Okay, so that the housing price will be capitalized into the quality of the public service will be capitalized into the housing price. That was kind of their simple notions about the capitalizations. Okay, and then two different perspectives. Actually, they're gonna be showing very different opposite the policy conclusions. Okay. Okay, so when we think about the tax and economic development, okay, so that the first framework about their firms, profitability is they're gonna studying their thinking about their profit making firms. They're gonna care about the level of their taxations. Okay, well, this is kind of the obvious, I guess, because higher tax means lower profit. Right? Because if the local areas that the local government imposing higher tax rate, and then it will be the cost of the private companies, okay, so that basically leading to lower profits. Okay, so assuming that everything is equal, the local government, the local areas with the lower tax, and they're gonna attract, they're gonna retrain more companies, and they're gonna have more jobs and higher incomes. Okay, that's kind of the simple things that you can think about the tax and economic development. Okay, and of course, the firms, they're gonna care about the many other things. Like, so in a lot of the surveys, they're gonna mention access to the customers is very critical, right? Because they want to sell a lot of their goods and service, and then customers should be get access to their products in the local economies. Okay, and access to the right kind of the workers, so that they are able to find the qualified workers, and then providing the better service, and then access to their energies and other input. Okay, or access to transportations. Okay, and there are a lot of things before they're gonna mention tax. Okay, like customers and workers and energy and all the other input, transportation, things like that. Okay, maybe the owners of the private comms, they're gonna may base their decision on some different factors, like their own personal interest in particular locations whatsoever. Okay, so the tax is not just one single factors that affect their the decision making process in profit making firms, but we can think about simply the lower tax is better for private firms. Okay, so that the central questions about the relation between the tax and profitability is how important on tax in making influence on their firms' decisions, and then finally local economic development. Okay, well, actually, this kind of question is very difficult questions to answer, because we're gonna see that depending on the study, and depending on their industry, depending on the areas, they don't have the really consensus. They don't have any consensus about what is the impact of the tax on economic development. But there are some partial consensus that I'm gonna talk about later. Okay. Then next framework is capitalizations. Okay, so the second frameworks starting with the tax difference, because that's kind of the public service qualities will be capitalized into the land value and housing values. Okay, so based on that assumption, based on that frameworks, the private companies moving into that location, they're not going to care about the tax rate, because tax rate is already in the price of the land, right? So the firms compensate for the higher tax rate in the form of the lower property values. Okay, so if you remember previous notion about the capitalizations, okay, tax difference affect to rent values, then how? If tax rate is higher, then that the land will be much popular. It will not be much popular. Okay, so that demand is lower and supply is high, and then the price goes down. Okay, so that simply higher tax rate, the land with a higher tax rate will be lower in their property values. Okay, and from capitalization perspectives, private companies, they already know that. I mean, the lower tax rate is already reflect in the price of the land, and then they do not really care about tax rate. Okay, so based on their second framework, capitalization implies that firms really do not care about the service level. Okay. But if you look at the studies of the tax and economic development, again, there are rough consensus. The tax difference probably matters, but usually not every areas, but usually within the urban areas. Okay, and then the impact of the tax on economic development is not really big. Okay, but also the service quality difference also matter for economic development. Okay, so basically using those all different results and findings from a lot of the studies about the tax and service on economic development, we can simply think about the growth, economic growth and economic development depend on not only the level of tax, then also how the tax revenue will be spent. Okay, and that information is kind of the we can draw the following the graph based on that notions. Okay, it means that, well, tax rate. Okay, if tax rate goes up, this is tax rate, and then the economic development may goes up because the service qualities for public service quality for that areas will go up again. Okay, because the private firms care about the tax rate and also the quality of the service, the areas like how much they are able to get access to transportation, customers, and other input areas, or good qualified workers. Okay, all those kind of their activities will be maybe higher the tax rate, meaning that enough the tax rate, the having enough tax rate generating the sufficient expenditures, public expenditures, so that they can maintain certain level of their public service qualities, and then until they're gonna have their positive impact. Maybe so this part is positive impact because of the service qualities, even though tax rates goes up. Okay, but at a certain level, okay, well, it depends on the empirical data, and then if the tax rate is really too much, right, and then it really distract, it really kind of take the incentive from their private company to locate in that areas. Okay, so that this part will be the negative impact. Okay, so in plus service quality, here is we can think about that. Plus service quality will be better, larger impact on the tax rate. Okay, but this here is service is enough high so that they're not really able to boost the maximum economic growth, and they're gonna pass on the certain level, and then that's gonna be too much tax rate, and then it will be disincentive for the local the private firms. Okay, so that, as I mentioned before, that cutting the property tax, or usually the property tax is a primary revenue source for a lot of the local government in the developed countries, and the cutting property tax usually require the cutting the public service because they don't have enough the public expenditures. So that study on local economic development, they're gonna say that the service levels matter too. So simply cutting the property tax does not automatically all the time to helping the economic development, because there are possibility that they're gonna cutting the public service as well, right? So raising tax and improving the school may be better economic development strategy from the a lot of the studies that has conducted about the economic development. Okay. Specific tax break. Well, so that maybe general service tax level will be same, but they're gonna do very specific in such an area tax break. Okay. But because every case is unique, and because they not include any standard data set, and specific tax break are all kind of the difficult to study. So one example, like economic development qualities, Wasmer and Anderson, they're gonna look at the abatement in property tax. Okay, and then they found that leading to low employment rate and more poverty. Okay, so it's kind of the negative impact. And another studies by the Batik, they're gonna find no significant association between economic development incentive and economic development outcomes. And well, another good studies, they're gonna find no employer impact, but empowerment zones are effective and as well. Okay, maybe empowerment zone is, maybe students may not know about the empowerment zone. Well, this is kind of their the economic development policies. What they're gonna do is they're gonna designate very economically distressed communities, and then designate them, and then they're gonna receive a lot of the tax incentive from and grant from the federal government. Okay. So basically, giving a lot of the subsidies and tax credits to certain areas. That's one of the popular policy for economic development in the United States. Okay? And then they found that it's effective. Okay. And well, main analytical problem that with a specific tax break is the government generally does not know about the which firms, which companies are at the margins. Okay. Well, the firm at the margins means that that firm is potentially influenced by the incentive provided by the specific tax break. Okay. And a firm that is not at the margins, that firm is not will be affected by the incentive, because that firm will locate it in that areas even without the tax break. Okay, so if firm is not at the margins, well, then any tax break that private firm receive is kind of the waste of the government firm, because it has no impact on that firm's behaviors. So that key issue is the government should support the private firms that will change their behavior. They used to be outside of their the local areas, but because of the debt subsidies, because of the debt economic development policy, if they are moving into the within the local areas, and then that economic policy will be effective. Okay, but simply we're not able to see that which form is at the margin, which form is at the margin. Okay, but a lot of the public official, they're gonna claim the credit for attracting any firm that received a tax break, even if the firm was not at the margins. Okay, so this kind of the features of their specific tax break so imply they often misused. Okay, and then a lot of the public officials, as I mentioned, that they're going to offer specific tax break to gain the favors with the electoral rate, and then with the subsidized firms, even though these tax break has no impact on economic development policies. Okay. so that, as I mentioned, that if a firm is at the margin, then a specific tax break might be very powerful, strong economic development tools. Because attracting export firm in the tax break, they're gonna boost their local economies, and then tax break does not represent the lost revenues, because the firm would not have been in that areas without the tax break. Okay. So specific tax break, so that larger advantage over the general tax breaks. Okay. And in principle, right? So general tax break is not cost effective by the definitions, because they're not gonna really go to every firms. But specific tax break is focusing on certain groups of the companies. Okay. Then overall, I guess the potential gain from specific tax breaks, they're gonna continues to make them popular. But politicians are insured against the misuse of this tool, because nobody is able to prove that that particular tax break did not matter. Okay, so I guess this insurance guarantees misuse, but does not really helping us identify in what cases that actual misuse are really happening or not. Okay. Then we're gonna move on to public service and economic development. Okay. So the first part is looking at the relationship between the tax and economic development, and then the second part is looking at the public service and economic development. Okay. Good public service will helping for economic development as well, because firms care about the good school, good safety, and some business ground, so that they're gonna make their employees happy. Okay. And government service, they're gonna interact with the business decisions in very critical ways. Okay. So in terms of the public service and economic development, one of their great scholars, good scholars about their urbans and local economic development, which is Edward Glazers at their Harvard universities, and then he's the author of the Triumph of the Cities. So what he says about the economic development is the best strategies is to work on attracting smart entrepreneurial people, and then we have to get out their way. So this is kind of the reading to focus on bread and butter urban issues, like safe streets and short commute, and also eliminating any barriers to innovation in the entertainment sectors, like your over regulations of the restaurant, bars, okay, things like that. And based on that information, and then Glazers, they're gonna he's proposed different types of the strategies on the subcategories. Okay, so first one is make the entrepreneurs easy. So make the easiest place in the world to open a new startup. So what he's saying is he argued that every older cities, okay, they have to set up some kind of the task force. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna charge with making sure that their town is the easiest place in the world to open the new startup. Okay, so that giving a lot of the opportunity for new people come here and then start new business. Then second is big consumer cities. Okay, city will they're gonna developing by attracting workers with the quality of the life and excitement. Okay, as we can see that from their theories, the export outside export job is critical. So we have to attract more from outside, and then we'll simply changing the local jobs from one one place to another place is not really helping for economic development for local areas. So that attracting workers from outside, and then people consumes. Okay, so consumption is one of the way that uh, they're boosting the local economies with the quality of the life, things like that. Okay, and then what he mentioned is especially declining city, they're gonna have to work some unoccupied, okay, area structures turning to more attractive, usable urban space. Okay, so then make sure that the private developers who want to remake urban space, they have to, relatively easy time about that, easy access to those kind of the information and their work process. Okay. Well, and he also mentioned that finally, better school can reward the cities more quickly because better schools, they're gonna producing more qualified workers, potential workers, and then they're gonna be fill up their local economies with their high skilled people, right? That's kind of the strategies from the Glaciers views. Okay. And based on the informations, the economic development policy that suggests is first focus on the economic base. So the best way to study with the local economy is, increasing the flow of the resource from outside. Okay, subsidizing the local jobs and usually leading to just displacement, changing the locations of the service and goods. Okay. And don't expect tax cut accompanied by the service cut to boost economic development. Okay, so that if you have expect that tax cut will be leading to large amount of the reduction in the service, then you have to ask by yourself that is there really affecting positive economic development, right? So people kind of they make a suggestion that the specific tax break they should do meeting those kind of three conditions. Okay, well, tax break should be at the for the firm at the margins, right? Meaning that, well, they are outside of the areas and then they change their location into areas. Okay, well, the firms that located in the locals regardless of the tax break, well, it does not will have the good positive impact. Okay, the firms adding to the economic base. Okay, and then you have to make sure that the benefit will not be capitalized into the land price. If the capitalization is holdings, okay, then maybe business owners might not care about that. Okay, and then the good management, right? Because even though tax rate goes down, if you have the good management, and then you don't have to really sacrifice the service. Okay, you can keep your level of the service, okay, without cutting the expenditures. Okay, so simply good management can directly help economic development by supporting the business development and identifying the unnecessary regulatory barriers. Okay, so this is like the same argument by the Professor Glaziers that do not let the bad management get in the way of the business startups.